Hey sister friends, it's Terry from Sisterhood of the Traveling Brush. If you're new here, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I hope that you'll subscribe and watch for videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Today we're working on recreating a custom buffet that I created once before. Someone ordered one again. We found a buffet to use, but it has some veneer damage. The lady I bought it from had the pieces, or at least most of the pieces of the veneer. So the options now would be to glue all these back on and then try to hide the seams, or scrape all of the veneer off and get down to the bare wood on these. But my decision has been to use wood icing. This company is no longer in business, but I have maybe a dozen of these left, so if you need some, holler at me. And can't find my putty knife, so I'm going to use a stick that comes from Transfers and this little rubber device here, and I'm going to add the wood icing to the bottom. With the wood icing, you can stain it, paint it, whatever afterward. I'll have to sand this down a little flatter, fill in these gaps where the veneer was coming off, and since it's going to be painted anyway, with a little bit of a texture, it's not going to be that important. But it would show through if, you know, all the peaks and valleys and high areas, low areas and stuff like that, if I wasn't filling this in. Okay, while the wood icing is drying on the bottom where the missing veneer was at, I'm going to go ahead and get my colors ready. We're going to be using Junk Monkey Berry Dance and Junk Monkey Crazy Eyes. Those are two colors that I love, but for the main teal color, I don't have one exactly like I want, so I'm going to mix Dixie Belle Cotton with Dixie Belle Mermaid Teal and see if I can come up with a little bit of a brighter teal color. You always need to mix these paints, even if it looks like it doesn't need mixing, because sometimes, you know, some of the ingredients or some of the pigments and things like that may sink to the bottom, and then you won't have the exact same number of pigments, so the exact same color going all the way through. This is brand new, obviously, full to the rim. And I'm going to pour half of the mermaid tail. I'm eyeballing it. Well, maybe just a quarter to begin with of the cotton down in it. And now we mix. Normally you always would put your darker color in with your lighter color, but I know I'm going to use a lot of this, so oh, it's perfect. Perfect. That's not going to be enough, and here this could be a problem, so let me go ahead and explain this real quick. This is not going to be enough to put 2 coats on everywhere that I'm going to put it, I don't think. The paint goes a long way, so we'll see. After I get this first coat on, if it doesn't look like there's enough, I will mix a new batch right then, so that the whole second coat will be the same exact color, so that I won't have half of it be out of this batch and half of it being out of another batch. So there we go, and I'm going to stir these up, and then we're going to get ready to paint. Sorry if you missed the whole painting of the top. Basically, I just put one whole coat up there of the 50-50 mix of mermaid tail and cotton from Dixie Belle. I'm going to now paint the legs on the bottom, and I'm going to lay on the floor to do that, so I'm not going to do that in front of you, but I'm going to do the behind part, the back legs, and the underneath brace, and then we'll come back and do the crazy eyes and the berry dance and go from there. Okay, we got all of the first coat of the color that we made on there, so we used about half of that. So what I will do will be go ahead and make another batch. I did here, this is not something that I did in the original, but in order to make it go faster and easier for me now to be the separator of the first coat, so that it would just make it easy for me to speed through this right now. So that's what we're gonna do. The next color that I used was Crazy Eyes by Junk Monkey. I've already stirred it. I'm using the mini angle, and I'm doing that because it's going to be easier to get up under there and the other areas if it's angled. Now my mister's, there it goes. My mister's being, there it goes, iffy. I'm just going to mist my brush to get it good and started. Put a little bit on there. This is for the most part dry, but not completely. So I am going to be a little bit respectful of it. I'm going to paint this hardware, so I'm going to want to go, the way I like to do it is to go around all that to begin with, to make it easy. Then we'll straighten out the brush strokes at the end. All I'm basically looking for at this time is to make sure I don't get any runs or anything, and if I do, that I catch them in time. And if I don't catch them in time, I will come back and scrape them off or sand them off with something and then paint back over it. So it's not the end of the world if it happens. It's just that it's easier right now to just swipe over it with the brush. I'm doing all of this with the drawers and the doors closed, and I'll come back at the end once this dries some and pull this out and paint those. So I will be painting the sides and the top, just as an FYI. We have the first coat of the Crazy Eyes on there now, and the teal color that we created with the Dixie Belle, and now we're going to go with the Berry Dance. This one was also very thick, but I watered it down and stirred it up really good. This time I'm using the flat large from Dixie Belle synthetic for no particular reason other than I've dirtied up all my other synthetics this morning and I wanted to use a synthetic on it. And basically we're just going along using the temporary line that I put there to get started with this, and that's just going to help me to quickly lay on the paint. All we're doing is working on, ooh, looky there, working on placement right now, and all the details will be in with the second coat. I have the first coat of everything on the top part. On the legs, the front legs, I did those in the original piece in metallic copper. Dixie Belle doesn't sell this anymore. I just happen to still have some. And it comes with a base coat and a top coat. And from what I understand, there's real metallic fibers or pick something in here, real metal in there. So you would just use whatever kind of copper or gold paint that you have. I'm going to just use this artist brush because it'll allow me to get at the top really easy and around the edges where it meets other areas. But I'm going to put on 2 coats of the base coat, let that dry, and then I will probably put on 2 coats of the metallic top coat, and then that's also the same paint that I will use once I get the second coat of paint on, probably even after I get the patina on, to sort of outline everything and all the areas that I feel like need a little bit of extra attention. This is a lot thinner than regular paint, so we'll just have to be a little more careful about runs and things like that. what I'm gonna do now is continue to do what I'm doing, slopping on this thick paint on around this last corner. I'm gonna let that start drying. I'm gonna put the third coat of the orange color on. Then when this is dry, I'll come back and put a third coat on there, and maybe a second coat of base coat on the legs today. And hopefully my last real goal for the day is to put a coat of satin clear coat on the whole thing, if I can still be here long enough to, you know, to let all that dry. I got the second and third coats on everything, and I put a coat of Dixie Belle Satin Topcoat on here. And today we're going to put our first coat of copper patina. And this stuff is gorgeous. And I know you probably can't see it well from there, but just trust me, it's gorgeous. And it does have metallic particles down in it, real copper. So the patina that we're going to create on here isn't just a faux finish, it's an actual real patina. If you are working on a piece like this and you haven't done what I did here, which was go ahead and put a background of where you want it to go, I already have that sort of sketched out in my paint here. But if I had not done that, I brought in water soluble. And I do sell these too, but so if you're interested. But what I would do would be take this and draw out where I wanted to go, so that whenever I started with my patina paint, it would be real easy and I didn't have to stop and go back and go up and look and, you know, try to figure out whether that's what I liked or not. So you would just mark that out. And I like using something like this that's water soluble instead of a pencil or something, because it will just sort of, you know, meld in with everything else and not show up. But since I put this teal paint that was part of the same as this, 50/50 Dixie Belle Mermaid teal and cotton, I'm going to apply this with a chip brush. And the reason I'm using a chip brush is because I'm going to give it a little bit of texture. To create the patina, it takes 2 coats of this. The first one we're about to put on, then we're going to let it dry, and then we'll put another one, and while it's wet we'll spray. But I also want to show you that I have the picture of the original piece that I painted that I'm mimicking here, right here. If I didn't have this, I would draw it out on a piece of paper so that I kind of have a little bit of a map of where I'm going with it. I do have my original drawings for this someplace, but I don't know where they were at. If you wanted a lot of texture, say if you were doing iron and you wanted it to be rust instead of the copper with the, you know, the teal and blue color patina that comes with copper, you can mix your metallic paint with sea spray to get a really good raised texture. I don't want that much texture on this piece, so I'm going to get my texture from just kind of pouncing. And I'm going to follow the guideline that I drew out, and in this instance that I've done already, so that I'm not right in the middle of the thing getting confused and hating what I do. I already have a guideline for where I want to go. Like I said, the chip brush is going to be easier for me to pounce with. And it doesn't have to be perfect with the lines that I've drawn here, because if they had been drawn with the water-soluble crayons like I showed you, well, they would be, you know, wiped off and disappear anyway. I'm going to go over the top with the same metallic paint that I'm using on the legs and put a straight line over the top of it anyway. So I gave myself an easy way out with this. All this dabbing does give it almost like a hammered copper type of look to it, and I want it thinner at the bottom than the top so that it appears to be sort of dripping and running, because when you do see real patina, it's, you know, not always completely solid. If it's been sitting outside under a water spout for a while or something like that, and the patina has started, it'll start first where the water runs down. So that's what we're trying to keep in mind here. hardware is a little different on this one than it was on the last one. So I've left it on, but I do have to consider how, with that hardware being there and this happening, how would the sort of drips run around that and off of that. This patina has developed beautifully too. This is no longer available. You can use whatever copper that you have. This is a two-step process, and I'm just gonna follow along the top and add this line just because it was on the other one and I thought it looked good. This is turning out great. I'm thrilled. That's exactly how I'm gonna see it. The next thing I'm gonna do, and I don't have the right brush down here, but just to show you. A coat of the top coat down there, and to go with the black wax right here. I'm only gonna do a small area at a time, like one door or one drawer. Then go back in white. You know, let that dry and just do dark wax for a little while before I come back to it and make sure before, you know, that it's gonna work out how I want it to. Go one more time of buffing. Okay, thank y'all for joining me, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.